Welcome, dear readers, to the Roll Off a Tangent podcast, where we sometimes analyze the short stories that we read, but usually roll off into tangents and talk about other things. This is XJ from the team, and today I want to welcome you to a special episode. This is a recorded interview I had with a man named Brady Patterson. He is an avid outdoorsman, and I've held on to this interview for a long time as I tried to find a good time and venue to release it. There will be no video component to this podcast, so just put on your earphones, kick back, and relax, or go about your daily task. My book, The Adventures of Longtail, Volume 1, is about to enter the pre-launch phase. And because this is the era of self-plugs, I will include the link to the Kindle pre-launch in the comments section below. If you're interested in a setting millions of years in the future, where mankind are no longer around, where the actors on stage are all non-humans, where strange and deadly creatures roam equally dangerous and exotic environments, if the mystery of a solar system set in the distant future interests you, beckons at you, then please consider supporting the book. It's 99 cents and it would help greatly with feeding the algorithms of the machine gods. Thus endeth the self-plug. The main character of my book, the Longtail, he is a survivor. His travels often bring him to alien environments far from civilization and where the local flora and fauna are very unfriendly, to say the least. I am a city person. I do not know the first thing about surviving in the wilds. I was very lucky to have met Brady, and when I found out that he not only was someone who spent a great deal of time in the wilderness, but also coached others in the art of bushcraft, I realized I just had to talk to him, to pick his brain, and to inject a little realism into my character. Brady shared a great deal with me. How to make water drinkable, how to make rope, what's the first thing someone should do when marooned on an alien planet? Well, really, there's not much anyone can do if they are marooned on an alien planet. Because in order to survive in the wilderness, you have to know the local conditions. But hey, I've got a story to write and something has to give way in the name of artistic license. I am very grateful to Brady for giving me his time and wisdom, and I want to share that in turn with you, dear readers. I hope I had done a passable job incorporating the things Brady taught me into the Longtail and in his adventures across the solar system. If the idea of self-reliance in nature appeals to you, please follow Brady on his Instagram, Brady Patterson. He has his own website, outdooradventureschool.com, where people can reach out to him should they be interested in getting closer to nature. All of these links will be in the comment section below. And now, may I present Brady Patterson. Thanks for giving me your time, Brady. I really appreciate it.
Hey, my pleasure, man.
Yeah, what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you a little bit about the story that I'm writing. I'm going to let you take the lead because I know nothing about staying out in the forest.
Got it. Sure.
So what I'm actually writing right now is a space opera kind of a book. And the way I usually describe it is Indiana Jones meets David Attenborough in space. The main character is basically an explorer guy, and he just like travels the solar system looking for things. I try my best to write him as close to a kind of a, I wouldn't call him a survivalist really. He's not really a survivalist. He doesn't put himself into extreme situations, but he spends lots of time in very unfamiliar alien places, and he needs to live.
Yeah.
So I am going to just let you take it from there, because one question that I would have is, if you were marooned in a place and you don't know the lay of the land, how would you go about securing your needs?
Yeah, this is a good question. Okay, so it's a good framework. So the word you're looking for to describe this person is self-reliance. People that can be dropped into any situation, anywhere, anytime, and come out of it hopefully fairly comfortably, or
Mm-hmm.
at least make it out of it. In my world, we call that self-reliance. We're not beholden, or we don't require some other people to survive, but survival is hard on your own. It's very, very difficult. And most people don't realize that. They think, oh, well, a survivalist or someone who takes care of themselves, so they can kind of go out and do whatever they want, and they can drop them in any situation. But without preparation and being dropped in an unfamiliar territory, without being prepared or knowing the lay of the land, it's very, very difficult.
Mm.
Like even the shows right now, like I have some of my friends are people like, well, I know Les Stroud, right? So the guy known as Survivor Man, several of the people from the cast of Alone, all these different places. And the same thing is universal amongst all these people is like, if you have the opportunity to do the research, do as much research and preparation as humanly possible, because if you're unprepared, it can be quite difficult, very challenging to survive. And the likelihood, one of the things that's really important if you get dropped in a remote area or an unfamiliar territory, is just to stop and kind of take stock of the settings, like look around, take a break. Most people, if you go into immediate action, then the problem is you miss things. You got to kind of slow down and get into the area. So like for the example I would give of this is like, I mean, unless it's life threatening, like if you're in a situation and your plane crashes and it's like, and you land in water, you're not going to stop and think, oh, I've got to wait here and assess my situation. It's like, the plane is fucking sinking. Shit, where's the shore? That's as far as you have to think about it, right? You're like, okay, where's the shore? And then on your way out, you grab whatever is handy, just if you can carry it, and you can always come back later. Maybe you can dive for it. Maybe you can do different things, right? But you want to get to safety as soon as possible. Once you're safe and out of immediate danger, then you can assess the situation and be like, oh, okay, well, once you know that you're safe, you can kind of look around and be like, okay, what's nearby? All of us have different needs, but the basic ones, right, are shelter, water, and food. And, and I would argue fire, because with fire, you can deal with food and water. And in the right situation, also with shelter. With those four things, you can achieve a lot. So if I was to get dropped on an alien planet, the first thing I would try to do is identify my first thing would be like, how do I get a shelter? My second thought would be, how do I get water? And my third thing would be, where do I find food? That's, and how do I make it all ingestible? How do I clean the water, and how do I make the food palatable, or so it's, I make sure that it's not toxic, right? Because it's really hard to know which things are going to kill you and which things are not.
Yes.
Right. I mean, one of the great examples of that is Christopher McCandless, and he got really famous. He's dead. He got famous because he died, right? And that was because he went into the woods and he was looking at a guide and trying to identify a berry, right? And be like, oh, can I eat this? And he was already starving. He was super hungry. So he just ate it because he was like, I think it's this, without actually knowing. When you're in a situation where you have to kind of survive on inhospitable environments, you have to know what's safe and what's not. You don't want to take unnecessary risks, because it's all about managing risk. I'd rather starve for 3 weeks and hopefully survive than eat something the first day because I'm hungry and die. It's about looking at from a different lens, because I know that the likelihood of me getting rescued or self-rescuing between now and 3 weeks is much better than dying the first day. And that's a big problem. Most people, they forget that, like, I don't know if you're going to go this deep into it, but like, the first day or two, people get really hungry. I've done it. If you've ever fasted, you'll know what I'm talking about. People are grouchy, they're bitchy, they don't have food, whatever. If you can get past that, we actually have a part of our brain that kicks into gear. It's the ketogenic cycle. I don't know all the technical pieces of it, but I do know that once your body switches to a fasting mode, it's like that's flip switches in your brain. Your body starts to conserve certain parts of energy, and it burns different fuel, stops burning carbohydrates. So when you reach that mode, you have to get past those first 2 days. The first 2 days are where you make the worst decisions usually, right?
Okay.
Because you're making decisions based on food and thirst, right? And
Mm.
those are because they're both immediate concerns. They're basic human needs. We make shitty decisions around them a lot of time. This makes it very challenging. But if you can get past those first 2 days, then it makes it much easier to be able to
Mm.
make good decisions, because then you could start thinking clearly. Now, as far as like being dropped, like I don't know where you're going with the character, and if he's being dropped somewhere and like having to survive, or if he's just being in a different
Mm.
type of environment. I don't know if the plants are sentient or going to try and kill him. Like, I don't know any of that stuff, but I
Uh-huh.
do know that I would always I use it. There's an acronym that comes out of the military
Mm-hmm.
called STOPA, and
Stopper.
yeah, like stop the sign, like stop sign, but with an A at the end.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
And it stands for stop, think, observe, plan, act.
Mm.
Right.
Okay.
And if you can use those things, if you could use it in a framework, if you're in trouble, then it makes a big difference, because most of us, if we act without thinking, we don't engage that. Like, there are times to act without thinking. If somebody's swinging a knife at you, you don't want to sit
Mm.
and say, how do I avoid this knife? You want to be taking immediate action
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
to either disarm or run or both, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You want to get out of the situation. My preference is to run. I know in a knife fight, I trained a lot of martial arts. I
Mm-hmm.
know that in a knife fight, you're going to get cut. I don't
Mm-hmm.
want to get cut. So I will turn and run like as fast as I can. There are times for that kind of action when you're in immediate danger, but when you're not in immediate danger, it's time to put a little more attention on thinking about what's going on in your environment. And like,
Mm.
ultimately, the entire thing around self-reliance is making your environment work for you,
Mm.
right? That's the biggest thing. Is like, one of my teachers, Morris Kohansky, he fathered a movement called bushcraft. And
Mm.
if you're familiar with the outdoor world, if you look up Morris Kohansky, or you look up bushcraft, like, his name is associated with it, right? His first thing that he said is, nature is neutral. It's not for or against you. So it's what you make of it. Most people, it's so much of it's a mindset thing. If you look at fire, essentially fire is not necessary, because there are ways to purify water, to collect water, to cook food, or even
Mm.
just to eat without cooking. But the psychological effect of certain things is incredibly valuable. Like, in a cold environment or when you're lost, the psychological value of fire is unbelievable. You could, I've been on trips where, like, I test my capability, where I walk, like, are you in Vancouver?
Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've walked from here. I live just by Deep Cove, right? And
Okay.
I've walked up, I've gone up Seymour, down the back, past Elsay Lake, walked basically out towards, like, as far up the Indian Arm as I can walk, but up high.
That's a very long walk.
Yeah, but without food, right? And
Without food.
without food and without carrying water. And I've been out there for a week or two at a time sometimes. And
Okay.
it's not easy, but I went in winter once with snowshoes, and I did take a little bit of food, but not enough to meet daily requirements. And I wanted to just see. I trapped and ate squirrels and rabbits, and from around my campsite. But the shelter was important. Water was abundant, because I had, obviously, like, there's snow everywhere in the winter.
Mm-hmm.
But that fire, I could warm by that fire. I could sit by that fire and just, like, sit in its heat. It lit up my shelter. It was like the inside of my shelter turned into a bright, cheery environment, instead of being this kind of, like,
Mm.
dark. Like, a lot of survival type shelters are not very pleasant to sleep in. Like, if you're in a
Yeah.
some, like, I've slept in snow caves. I've slept in, they're not fun to be in. They're dark and they're damp and they're oftentimes, right, and they're usually dirty. And that's okay if it's going to keep you warm, and it's going to, like, I've literally raked, like, cedar, like, at the end, like, in the fall, there's, like, if you go into some areas in the forest, they'll have, like, a bed of, like, just the ends of cedar. So there's, like,
Mm.
it's like 4 to 6 inches thick, and I'll rake that up. You make a rake out of a couple of sticks, and I'll make a pile that's 4 feet deep, 5 feet deep,
Mm.
and I'll crawl into it, and I'll sleep in that without a sleeping bag, without a fire, and that will keep
Mm.
me warm. It won't keep me dry, but it'll keep me warm, right? It'll keep me dry
Right.
if it's except unless it rains really, really bad.
Mm.
but it's dirty. There's bugs. There's, there's a lot that comes with that. Ultimately, at the end of the day, if your self-reliance is about creating a comfortable, using nature to the best of your ability, just being familiar, knowing some things, being prepared, knowing how to tie knots, knowing how to make rope. Like I can make blackberry makes a great rope. Cedar makes a great rope.
Right.
Nettle, like steaming nettles, right? Like there's lots of different materials that make, like even in my yard, if I look around, I'm like, if I had to do something and I couldn't use anything here, there's lots of ways for me to use things to make different devices. You could even just take a tree and twist it depending on the type of tree, and it'll make what's called a wood. Yeah.
So you could just take some branches and then just kind of beat it so that it's kind of soft, and then weave it into a rope or something.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, it's called a withy. Withy. It's basically like you actually leave the tree attached to the ground. And it's usually best with a sapling, and you start twisting and you twist and you twist, and it breaks the fibers vertically. So and then it leaves them all intact, so they become flexible like rope. It's never going to be as flexible as rope, but so like different plants can have different properties. I mean, at the end of the day, if we're talking like around food and stuff, you need to eat about 1,000 calories a day at bare minimum, or it's not actually worth eating at all. And you need 500 calories of that. Now this is you can argue this, and I know like Moores, for example, would have argued this point. He says, you need 500 of that from carbohydrates. However, I know that you can survive purely on a carnivore diet because I know people that have done it for, 20 years. I did it for a year. So, and I did fine with it. But the basic fundamental principle is the same. You still have to eat a certain amount of calories a day, or it's actually not worth eating, because it takes more calories to process the food than it gives back.
Right. Okay.
So, is this all helpful?
This is very helpful. I have a question for you. So this is obviously not, as you said, it's not very pleasant to be out there. So what keeps drawing you back?
I think for me, it's the challenge of it. I like challenges. I've been a CrossFitter for many years. I like physical challenge. I like emotional challenge. So for me, being able to put myself in tough situations also makes it, in the moment, it can kind of really suck. But the feeling I get from overcoming that challenge is really powerful for me. It's like climbing to the top of a mountain. Most people, they give up before, like many people give up before they get to the top, because it's hard. Well, yeah, it's hard. But when you get up there and you look and you're like a really tall mountain and you're above absolutely everything, and everything is below you, even the other mountains, the feeling you get is unbelievable. And so, like when I teach a survival course, and somebody comes through that weekend and they come out of that and they're like, I can do anything. I can.
Right.
And it's not just it's not like they can just go out in the woods and survive again. It's like no challenge seems as tough. So if you're struggling at work, if somebody comes out and spends a weekend with me, when they come back from that, work is not hard anymore. It's like that's not as much of a challenge as what they just went through. They're struggling with their spouse or arguing with their spouse. Now it's much easier because you can put into perspective what it's like by having these other challenges.
So it sounds like it is overcoming these challenges, like putting yourself into just looking at things from a different angle that really draws you back.
Correct. Yeah, I like overcoming the challenges. Yeah, it just keeps bringing me back to that, and I like it. And for me, because I teach people, I like seeing the change in them. Right? I like seeing that transformation, and I love getting the messages from people, right? Where they're like, I get an email a week later, or 2 weeks later, or even heck, a year later in some cases, where people are like, I didn't realize how much that made a difference until I started looking at the way I approach life. It's like if you look at life, you can look at life in two ways. It could be like everything's against me, or everything's three ways. Everything's either against me, for me, or neutral. And if you look at it from the perspective of everything's neutral, then it's what you make of it. And if you look at it from everything is for me, then when something doesn't go your way, that can trigger some things. Now, both I think if you look at like everything's against me, I think that's just a negative attitude towards
Mm-hmm.
it, and it can be very challenging. I think if you look at everything's positive, it's kind of pie in the sky, not realistic, because not everything's for you. Everything can be helpful to you because it can point out flaws and problems and incongruencies and things like that. But if you look
Mm-hmm.
at it as like everything's neutral, and so everything that happens is whatever I make out of it, that can be a very powerful tool. It's like what's happening in the world right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's freaking out, and people are hoarding things, and they're stressing out, and they're, why didn't I buy more toilet paper, and how come I didn't get more dried food or whatever? And there's people. I was at the grocery store about a week ago, and somebody was walking down the aisle, shoving people out of their way with a box. They were like, "Get out of my way! Get out of my way! I need that thing!" Like they were trying to
Wow.
get to something, and I was like, I just blocked the aisle with the cart right across the thing, and I was like, "You're gonna have to wait." Like it was a narrow aisle. I was like, "You're gonna have to wait because like you're not coming close to me, and I don't want you anywhere. I can't. You're not worth risking my wife's safety. And I don't know why you're so angry." And the guy was really
Mm.
upset. He ended up going back the other way and going around me. But most people didn't prepare. Like,
Mm.
for me, I'm prepared. I had, about 5, 6 months of food saved up. And I've had that for years because that's just the way I live. I
Mm.
keep food that way. If my neighbor, if something happens, like I always thought, like if Vancouver has an earthquake, people are screwed. Like
Mm-hmm.
especially my neighbors who, are
Mm.
mostly younger. A lot of them are younger. They have a lot of money. They're used to being able to just go to the store whenever they want to and get their lattes and their whatever. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
well, but they don't know what it's like to have actual hardship. I grew up on a farm in southern Saskatchewan,
Right.
and
Right.
I grew up in a very poor family, and so I remember what it was like to dig potatoes and have a whole room full of potatoes and canning all the fruits and canning the vegetables, and I grew up in a family that was self-reliance.
Mm.
We probably only bought 10 or 20% of the things from the store. The rest came from the farm. We butchered our own meat. We grew our own vegetables. I mean, in the winter we'd buy stuff because obviously, it's much more challenging on the in 40 below to grow things.
Wow.
But
Okay.
we were very self-reliant. So I always wanted to be able to help my friends, help my neighbors. Like
Mm.
if somebody's hungry and needs a meal, if I can cook that for them, I'd like to be able to do that. And I
Mm.
also want to be able to take care of my wife. If we're in trouble and we have no help coming as far as food, because if the supply chain shut down, Vancouver would be completely sold out of food in less than 30. They said, was it 31 hours? They said.
Mm-hmm.
I read a study. They said within 31 hours, every convenience store, every grocery store, everything would be bare. And so I always prepare. I don't want that to happen. I want to make sure that I have the things that I need to take care of my family.
Mm. Mm. So what I'm getting from you is that preparation is a really big and important part of being self-reliant.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. One other question I have is, so how would you deal with, well, actually, let's split that into two questions. So earlier you talked a little bit about making water safe to drink. Can you go into a little bit more about that?
Okay.
Yeah, without a fire.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can do what's called a solar still. So if you have clear plastic,
Mm-hmm.
you can literally dig a hole in the ground, put a pot, like a fairly good sized hole. Like let's say you have a big clear plastic bag, like a garbage bag or whatever that's clear.
Mm-hmm.
What you can do is you dig a hole that's smaller than the width of it once you cut it and lay it flat.
Mm-hmm.
And at the very bottom of that hole, you make it cone shaped. And at
Mm.
the very bottom, you put a pot with the lid open. And what you
Right.
do is
Okay.
you lay the plastic across the top. You weigh it down on the outside with logs or dirt or sticks, whatever, right? You just had to weigh it down so it doesn't blow away. And then you put a single rock in the center above the pots. And as the heat from the sun warms up underneath there, the dirt naturally has moisture in it. So it's going to create a
Mm.
warm space, and that air is going to come up. It's going to hit the plastic, and the plastic will likely be colder than the air coming up because that's the nature of it. It'll condense and it'll run to the center where that rock is and drip into the pots. So that's
Right.
one way to do it. You can actually use a plain, like a normal plastic water bottle. You can put water in it, flip it on its side, and you can leave it outside for a day or two, maybe 3. Depends on the sun. Like if there's no
Mm.
sun, it's not going to work. It will help. It won't boil it, but it'll pasteurize it using UV. right? So if the sun's ultraviolet rays will pasteurize the water. Those are two ways. You can collect water if there's dew on a tree. You can use a rag or a piece of clothing, a cloth, a bandana, and you can wipe down plants that are covered in moisture or dew, even the grass. And then you can wring that out, and that water is safe to drink.
Right.
So
Okay.
those are three methods you can use without cleaning. If you have, there's quite a number of ways. The best way, obviously, is always going to be to boil, but boiling only works if you have clean water in the first place. You should always filter the water into your pots, right? Because even boiling won't get to, if you have proteins or solids in the water, boiling won't kill anything inside the protein. So if there's like a piece of dirt or a piece of something that has a toxin inside of it, boiling won't kill that. It'll just kill what's on the surface of it.
Right. Okay. Fair enough.
Okay.
And so how do you deal with poison?
With which?
With poison.
Well, I mean, one of the best forms of protecting yourself from poison is charcoal. So if you can make a fire, you can find where a fire was, you can use charcoal. So charcoal will actually, it binds to many toxins, nutrients, things like that. So if for example, you were to get really sick, you can, or eat something poisonous. Now, this doesn't mean it's going to help. Like if you ate a mushroom that's poisonous, this will not help. Mushrooms run their course. For whatever reason, fungi, if you eat a poisonous mushroom, it's either going to kill you or it's not. And you're going to find out, like, you'll be fine. You'll be like, okay, you eat the mushrooms, you feel fine. 3 days later, you'll just die. Depends on the mushroom. The way they affect the system, they don't bind quite as well to toxins. Now, you would have to know within minutes if you ate a poisonous mushroom for the charcoal to work. However, if you start getting sick, one thing you can use from eating a poisonous berry or something like that is you can eat charcoal. Now, you don't want to eat big bricks of charcoal, right? What you want to do is you want to take like a piece of char, make a fire. This is the problem. It all takes time.
Right.
So you want to take a fire and then get it going really good, but then cover it with dirt and let it become a charcoal that's carbonized, but not burnt. That as soon as it becomes ash, it's not effective. And in fact, if you eat ash, you can end up putting lye into your body, which is also toxic, right? You don't want to put lye in the body. But charcoal that's been burned in a charring process without oxygen will absorb other nutrients, other toxins. It binds to things very well. So you can actually take that, crush it up, throw away the big chunks, and just like literally mix it with a glass of water and chug. So that's used in the hospital even. They use charcoal to treat. They pump your stomach and then they give you charcoal. So, I mean, there's lots of different methods, depends on the poison.
Is that too broad a question?
It's not too broad a question. It's just like, ultimately, you shouldn't eat things that you can't identify. Ever. I mean, if you don't know that it's safe to eat, you should not eat it, because a lot of poisons, there's nothing you can do. And sometimes you can tolerate certain amounts. So if you can identify something, you can eat it. Like there's a local plant here, I'm sure you've seen a lot, called it's known by two words, either snowberry. So you've probably seen it if you're walking around. It's big white, has like these white berries. Looks like it's covered in white berries. They're like a shrub. I don't have any in the yard, or I would show them to you right now.
Okay.
They're quite pretty. They're quite pretty. But it's also known as corpseberry, because it's poisonous. However, it's a famine food. So you can eat it in small amounts. If you needed the nutrients, if you were starving, you can eat it in small amounts mixed with other things, but you only want to eat a little tiny bit added to each meal, because it will keep you alive, even though it's not really that good for you. But if you were to make like a pie with it and eat the pie, say goodbye. Everything has different scales of toxicity when it comes to poisonous plants, right? So some things will kill you with a very little, some things will kill you, like the death cap mushroom, right? For example, you eat that, you're dead. It's just not a question. Unless they can get to you within minutes and pump your stomach. And like you should literally like run into the hospital with the kid, for example, like that young kid that died in Victoria, right? Like if you saw him eat it, the first thing would be like, put that kid under your arm and get to the hospital as soon as possible. That would have saved his life, or possibly saved his life. But then, there's other things like snowberry or corpseberry that are toxic if you eat lots of it, but you can tolerate little bits at a time on a regular basis. You just have to be careful. There's other things that just taste like shit. but are
Mm-hmm.
edible. Mountain ash, you've probably seen every time you go hiking. It's these kind of orangey red berries. They grow really thick in clumps. Mountain ash, you can eat it, but it's horrible tasting. It tastes like crap. There's lots of things, and some things you need to treat. So everything in edible plants and foods, you basically have to have local. This is the thing. If the guy's landing on a remote place and he doesn't know like, you want to try and get local knowledge as quick as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Because without local knowledge, you're probably going to die. You know, when people came
Right.
west and colonized Canada, the United States, and moved across from the eastern side to the western, we talked to the local natives. We learned what things were poisonous, what things were safe, because they learned by dying. So we don't want to repeat their mistakes, especially if there's only one of us. It kind of defeats the purpose. We basically want to try and get local knowledge as much as possible, just to, so that you can stay safe. So poisons are a tricky one because there's so much, it depends, involved.
So if you were bitten by something, and so how would you deal with that? Because I'm a combat medic. How we would deal with poisonous bite in the field with nothing. First, we would tourniquet the bitten site, and obviously we would start calling for the ambulance. And if we have antivenom of some sort, then identify what had bitten the person, and then plunge in the antivenom. But sometimes it's just like, depending on what actually bit the person, it could either be too late or
yeah I mean, and it sounds like you have a good background in that stuff too, because you lived in a place like that, right? I mean, you have to know. I mean, the first thing I would do is whatever bit me, I would kill it and take it with me. I'd be carrying it with me so I know what it is, right? I would do my, because like that, so they can identify what it is. And if your character happens to come across somebody that can help, and he can say, this is what bit me, they'll know what bit him and probably know some sort of a cure or a prevention, or tell him, say goodbye, it was nice knowing you. That's a whole other story. Medical training and understanding what to do is really important, right? Got it right, like knowing how to use a tourniquet properly, because too many people, they use one but they use it improperly. It ends up they lose the limb or something just from that alone. So knowing how to use those things effectively, dispelling the myths, like sucking venom out, like
no, that's terrible.
That doesn't work. Like it can make it worse in some situations. So making sure that they know and how to do it themselves, right? Okay, I just got bit on my leg. Okay, what do I do? I need to. It comes back to the first thing I started talking about, which is that STOPA acronym, like stop, think, observe, plan, act. The biggest thing in nature is staying calm, right? As soon as you get excited, that is what accelerates the problems. If you're like, have you heard of the term exposure? People die of exposure.
Yes, tell me about that.
So exposure is technically panic-induced death.
Panic-induced death.
Yes, because it's not exposure is not a single thing. It's a combination of things. So what happens is the person who dies, let's say, for example, even on the North Shore or even in BC, like here in the middle of summer, it can be quite cold at night. And people can get hypothermia even in the middle of summer, depending on where they are and what's going on around them. So somebody gets lost, let's say maybe they're up at Lynn Valley, way back in Lynn Valley, and they get lost and they're off trail for some reason. They can't find their way back. Now it's pretty hard to get lost here, but at the same time, maybe they did. Let's just say that they did. So they wandered off trail, can't find their way back. It gets dark and they start running, trying to find it, like running around in the dark, trip, fall, break their leg, and like fall into the river or into a stream and break their leg, and they're stuck there and they can't get to safety. Now they're soaking wet, they're cold, they get hypothermic, they die. That would be a version of exposure. Or another version of exposure would be, most of the time hypothermia is involved, but same thing. It could be like they tripped and fell, hit their head because they were panicking, or they broke a limb and they couldn't get out at that point, or even just got hypothermic and sat under a tree, went to sleep because they were extremely hypothermic from getting really hot and sweaty because they were running around trying to find their way out and getting really worked up. And then when they stopped, they got cold very quickly, and then they started getting hypothermic, and it just accelerates.
Right.
So that's what exposure essentially is panic-induced death. It usually involves hypothermia or a broken limb or something like that. Well, a fall. This is just hard to say. Like they could say, "Oh, he fell and tripped," but if somebody falls in a perfectly flat area, why did he fall in the first place? What was the reason? And usually it's because they were panicking and running around, getting too excited.
So bad
And
decisions made under emotional duress.
exactly. And if you have poison or toxin in your system, the more excited you are, the quicker
Yeah,
the
the
poison
faster it
spreads.
circulates. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So you want to stay
Mm.
calmer so that you don't end up accelerating the process.
Mm.
If you're able to, you want to rest, take it slow, get your foot elevated if you're on your foot, or get your arm elevated if it's in your arm or wherever, and try to figure out what to do next. And
Mm.
I always say, if somebody gets lost, I always teach my students this. If you get lost and you're not in immediate danger, sit down and take a nap. Just have a 20-minute nap, have a 30, try to have a nap.
Mm. Just calm
Because like
yourself down.
when you wake up, your brain, exactly, you wake up, you'll be more calm, you'll be more relaxed, and you'll think more clearly. And when you can think more clearly, you can make better decisions, and you'll
Mm-hmm.
have a much higher likelihood of surviving the situation.
That's great, man. Yeah. Take a nap. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. I learned that from one of my teachers. He said the same thing, and I've passed it on to all my students. I don't think I have necessarily all the unique information. There's definitely a lot of experts out there that can share this kind of stuff, because we learn from people dying for bad decisions other people made, and we try not to repeat those.
Yes. All right, man. Yeah. So this has been really great, really wonderful, and informative for me. It basically helps me a lot in grounding my character, because like up to now, I haven't really been able to, in writing fiction, one thing that we have is we can call the Deus ex machina, is the machinery of God. Or what I've been doing to try to dig my main character out of the situation he found himself in is to drop in things for him. That doesn't make for great storytelling, and I've been trying to move away from that. And yeah, this gives me a really nice direction to head towards with the. I really
Good.
appreciate your time. Yeah.
Good. I'm glad. I hope it helps. And you asked, and I would appreciate, like, if you write this book and you use the information, I'd love to like just get a shout out in the book.
Oh,
It's always
totally.
good for credibility, so I can help more people, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I will find some way to well, not even just edit inside the book. I might just like in my social media mention this or something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure. That's fine as well.
yeah. Awesome, man. Thank you so much again for your time, Brady. Yeah.
All right, it was my pleasure. Hope you have a great day. Hope you're enjoying this. I hope the isolation is giving you time to write.
You know what? I'm not as productive as I hoped I would be. I have a real issue with. I need to be in office, basically. Yeah, I need to get away from my bed and my stuff. It's just like a huge distraction. Yeah.
Got it. I turn my kitchen into my office when I have to work from home like this. And I only use the kitchen for two things: cooking and working. So
That that sounds great. All
so
right, man.
make
I'm
sure
not gonna. Yeah.
okay, I'll send you the recording. It'll probably take like half an hour to render the video, and then it'll send me
Mm-hmm,
the
mm-hmm.
recording, and I'll just email it to you.
Yes, I would
Or
really appreciate that.
yeah. All right,
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah.
All right, man.
And yeah, thank you so much again. Yeah.
My pleasure.
Yeah.
Have a great
All
day.
right. Bye bye.
Bye bye.